Welcome to the Scoop on Order. Huge day today, Wednesday, day one of Ohio State camp. A lot of young phenoms were out there flying around, burning up the turf. We're going to get into the kids that got offered. About 6 or 7 kids were offered today. No linemen, so it was a younger crowd, but a lot of kids that really put on a show. So we're going to break those guys down. Linebackers, receivers, DBs. Real good day today for a lot of those kids. Some out-of-state kids, some in-state kids. So we're going to go through all of it. As always, we're going to take your questions. If you guys have any questions, send in a super chat. We pay that forward to our veterans, our retired service members, also our first responders. Appreciate you guys doing that each and every day. As always, thank you guys so much for all that you do for BuckeyeScoop.com. This has been an incredible 2-day stretch. With our anniversary, we've been talking to a lot of you guys. A lot of you guys have re-upped for BuckeyeScoop.com. We appreciate you guys. Thank you for your patronage. Thank you for believing in BuckeyeScoop.com. Again, this is a huge program and a huge website and the #1 Ohio State site in existence because you guys make it that. So thank you for that. Again, it is always a great pleasure to be here, to be with you guys, to serve you guys each and every night. The hottest intel, the latest buzz around Ohio State football. But we appreciate you guys being here. Again, we never take that for granted, and we're very thankful for all you guys do. So we appreciate that. So again, if you guys enjoy this content, please leave us a like. Click subscribe. Also click that little alert bell. That'll give you an alert every time we go live, which is each and every night around 7. Shout out where you guys are watching from. Shout out who you guys are watching with. Shout out which new offer are you most excited about. For some of you, we're probably going to be breaking them down in front of your eyes over the next hour. But again, a lot of good news on the skill front. A couple of linemen had a shot to get offered today, did not get offered. So, but we're going to get into kind of the schematics of what goes down at camp. Before and after, we had Bill Greene and Joe Drame both on the ground working, getting us a lot of great intel, a lot of good inside information. So we're going to break all that down. That being said, I got to bring in my good friend Nevadabuck. Nevada, day one of camp. Camp is not what it used to be with how much. I think the thing that really killed camps, especially for older players, was official visits being moved to the summer because a lot of these kids that you used to get in camp all of the sudden are just coming for official visits. Cardillo was in the building today, strained a hamstring running, so he did not get much work done. There were some linemen they were evaluating. Nolan Davenport, Cook, who's from a Columbus kid, did not get offered today. We'll break that down. And also some really young, impressive skill guys who had good days and did get offered. They did get pulled into Ryan Day's office with their position coach, and they pulled the trigger to get in the game. Nevada, your thoughts on day one of camp, the buzz, and overall, like your feel for the camp today?
Well, I mean, I think it was dominated by the young phenoms, and like you said, for the older guys, camp's so different right now because here's the reality for like especially like these older linemen. Ohio State knows they don't have to offer them until the last minute if they want to, so they're going to hold off on any type of quick offers to them or quick indications. They can go late into the game and get them because they know that those are kids that'll flip to Ohio State at any point. So I think with kids like that, I would expect, Ohio State to be a little bit more cagey, a little bit more deliberate, take a little bit more time in terms of doing things. And but some of these younger kids, when a kid comes out and burns and he's a 2027 kid for Ohio State, it makes a lot of sense to kind of jump in the boat, make the offer, kind of get the kid looking at Ohio State as quickly as possible. And you had some good out of state kids here today, which is always kind of a nice indication of interest for kids because you don't have to come to these camps, especially if you've already got an offer. Anthony Davis, linebacker from Texas, he's already got an offer, but coming up and going through the drills, doing his thing. That's impressive to me. Braylon Walmack, the 5-star safety from Mississippi, coming up and doing this stuff. I mean, I love situations like that where you get a kid that has no need to go out there and compete, but wants to come out there and compete and wants to go out there and show what he can do. And best of the best. I think it tells a lot about about the kid. Talks a lot about his interest in Ohio State, and it gives Ohio State kind of a fair measuring stick. How to compare him to other players, and I think Ohio State got a little bit of that done today, and so I think today was a successful day from Ohio State's perspective.
Again, the camps have been really watered down, and I think especially with a lot of the big time guys, the 5-star guys, like they don't camp after junior years. I mean, it's hard to get a 5-star guy to work out when you've got every offer. There's no upside to working out once you get the offer. That's why a lot of these kids that are superstars, like Tyler Atkinson, who is a Georgia kid who was here, a year ago as or maybe it might have been 2 years ago as a freshman, when he was a dominant player, doing his thing. You're not going to see that kid again at camp. Like, I mean, you're going to see him one time, and that's why you go on some of these kids that are 2027s, which that seems like a long way away when you're, a 2020, you're recruiting the 2024 class, but it really isn't the 25 class. I mean, we're on to 25. So you're recruiting kids that are freshmen. Again, Jameer just finished his freshman year at Wayne, dominant kid. I don't know if he's quite Ted Ginn, but he's like a Ted Ginn light because he is a speed demon, a speed merchant. And again, in a camp setting like today, like those are the kind of guys that I'm going to toss this film on real quick. Those are the kind of guys that when you see these guys run, and again, he's playing varsity as a freshman, which is very tough to do in the state of Ohio where there's good football. But you see him scorching guys as a young kid. And dude, you get in a camp setting where it's one-on-one, you versus a corner, and you have an entire, 53 yard field wide, and you get the 60 yards to get open. Like, I mean, you can exploit that matchup and just shred guys. And he did. And he looked great today. And we had a lot of good coverage on him. And he's the guy that, again, Brian Hartline, when you get an offer from Brian Hartline as a 2027, you've got to be like a Ted Ginn. You've got to be like a phenom. You got to be a guy that is like, we gotta throw our skin in the game at this point because Brian doesn't take many Ohio receivers. He took Jaden Ballard. Jamal Ballard is his dad, but he's been very national just because he can get the best guys out of Texas, the best guys out of Florida, and he's not scared to go against any of the he's not scared to go against Texas or Georgia or Miami or whoever on big receivers. So for an Ohio kid to get offered this early from Brian Hartline, it tells me he's the best player in the camp. And again, this kid's got massive upside. He's playing varsity as a freshman. So this is he's playing Friday Night Lights when a lot of kids are usually playing on Thursday nights in ninth grade games. And he's a major factor. You show this clip, he's returning kicks. He's going deep. He's an advanced route runner. And again, he's the guy that caught the staff's eye. And, when you're an Ohio kid and you're going to be a sophomore and you get an Ohio State offer, like that's very, very rare air because of, when you're Brian Hartline and you're Ryan Day and Chip Kelly, like if you go on an Ohio kid, especially a kid from Huber Heights, Wayne, like you can't rescind that offer. You can't, you can do it. I know we did it with Danny Clark a long time ago, but like if you, like at a real high school, like Huber Heights, Wayne, or St. Ed's, or St. Xavier, or Elder, or so these powerhouse schools where they churn out a lot of Division I guys, you can't do the offer, the soft offer, the fake offer. Like this is a real offer. So this kid wants to commit, he could jump in the boat. So I'm happy for the kid. Every time an Ohio kid gets offered by Ohio State, it's like an angel gets their wings, like in It's a Wonderful Life, and it makes me happy because again, I know that we've extended our reach and we're a very national recruiting team, but I also know that a lot of these kids dream of being Ohio State Buckeyes. They dream of wanting to wear the scarlet and gray. Their parents grow up Ohio State fans. Their grandparents are Ohio State fans. So when a kid like this gets that offer, it's really special, and it's funny. I talked to Jim Trussell for about 20 minutes today, and he's going to come on the program in the next couple of weeks. And he's got a great podcast. He did it with Nate Ebner that you guys should check out. But, he talked about, the kind of where colleges have gone real international, and, it denies a lot of kids the opportunity, especially in the state of Ohio, where a lot of kids dream of being Ohio State Buckeyes as just regular students. And they've gotten denied because we've gone international. We've gotten a lot of kids from overseas because they pay more for tuition. They pay more for the healthcare plans and all that. And so it's kind of like a thing where it's been great to kind of raise our test scores up, but it's not great on the back end because a lot of those kids, they leave and they go back home where their families are, which I totally understand, but they also don't give back to the program. Like they're not big donors and beneficiaries. So that's hurt a lot of institutions, namely Ohio State. So, a lot of Ohio kids that would have loved to come to Ohio State, they end up being great entrepreneurs and they stay in Ohio. And it was just an interesting conversation. So I love when Ohio kids, so the bottom line with that little tangent is that I love when Ohio kids that are special players get early offers, and you can already kind of, mentally benchmark them into the class of 27. Nevada, it was a good camp day, and again, I feel for the line. Like Nolan Davenport was okay. Did not get an offer today. Jay Cook, the kid from Westerville, did not get an offer today. What are your thoughts? And again, I think that you touched on a little bit. It's very astute, very sharp point where those two kids are two kids that I think that if Ohio State offered them a week before signing day, they would flip from Louisville or wherever Nolan commits to, Pitt or whatever. And they jump in the boat and be Buckeyes. So I think that, the staff uses that against them. Just being very transparent, very honest that, hey, what's their next best offer? They're not at the tier of schools where they're going to Bama or Georgia or Clemson or Michigan or, whatever. So I think that really hurts the kids. So those kids had to basically be like Orlando Pace today, and they weren't. So they didn't get offered. But what are your thoughts on that? Because again, I know that, again, we're holding out for better national guys, and it's a delicate balance because there's some kids that you get excited about and then you end up whiffing on, and then you look back and you're like, man, we probably should have got this kid because some kids flip, a lot of kids flip, but some won't, and it's kind of an interesting game because I feel like like Jake Cook could be a Buckeye. He reminds me of like he's not elf line, but he's like right a shade below elf line, but he's changed his body. He works really hard. He's a great athlete for his size. And I think he's got a lot of upside, but he's not, potentially in the mix yet. But what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, that one's got to hit a little close to home for you because that was kind of the story of the Burke Carton recruitment. That they knew that you were Bobby Buckeye and that you would commit on the spot if they offered you, and that you ended up being like, were you the last player in that recruiting class? I know you were late.
Marcel Frost, baby. Marcel, he didn't get off until January. He went from Iowa to us, so Marcel would have been hilarious out in Iowa too. But just saying.
But you get the point. I think that Ohio State likes to get as much data as they can. We've talked about the difficulty of evaluating the offensive line position, toughest position on the field by far to project from high school to college. So many different factors that are going in there. And the one thing that you can battle that with is with more data and more information. And, the more information you get on a player, how they developed into their senior year, how they're playing, you certainly have less opportunities to miss when you do that. And who are the only kids that you could probably do that with as offensive linemen is Ohio offensive linemen. Because as you said, those are the kids that want to be in Columbus, that are dying to be Buckeyes, that are willing to flip at the last minute. And so I think that's just the game. I mean, it sucks, but frankly, it's smart for Ohio State to try to take a little bit longer with a position group that they know they can slow play. And the bottom line is if you could slow play everybody, you'd have less misses, but you can't do that with out-of-state kids. So offensive linemen kind of get the short end of Ohio offensive linemen kind of get the short end of the stick from that standpoint. But frankly, I think it's a smart strategy.
Yeah, I mean, it's just the way the game is. Again, I wasn't a poker player. I would have been the worst poker player ever because I went to every game my junior, every game my senior. I was like, look, guys, I want this offer. I want to play here. Won't let you down. Again, the games and the schematics and the commits and the soft commits and the decommits and the recommits and the I decommitted. It's like DK Moore, like he decommits from LSU, then a month later he's going to visit LSU again. And I'm like, again, I get it. You're drumming up the NIL. You're trying to have a lot of smoke and mirrors everywhere, but it's just not how I was raised. It's not how I wanted to be. I knew where I wanted to go. Eventually they just relented and surrendered and gave me an offer, and I was good to go. But these kids that are seniors that are working out, I mean, it's like one of those things where do they really, these kids have put in a lot of work, and it's, I talked to Joe Drame. Joe Drame was there all day today and did a great job. Huge write-up on BuckeyeScoop.com, and Bill Greene was there today. So, I mean, we got a ton of coverage on BuckeyeScoop.com on today's camp, but the O-line class was not great. And there were two guys that were realistic Ohio State guys. And from what I heard, there wasn't any young guys. There wasn't like a 27 or a 26 lineman where you're like, oh God, watch out for this guy. You got, baby Huey out there, some big moose, and he's gonna, become a monster. Like there was just like a kind of a dearth of talent among the big guys, and I don't think the D line group was good either. So it was interesting, but the skill guys were great. But again, I feel for these kids because today was like their one, like Eminem, like one shot opportunity. And you gotta, I mean, when you're like like Cook or Davenport, I mean, you gotta hit a 600-foot grand slam, over the nearest office building outside of the Major League Baseball stadium. Like, you don't have any room for error. You can't lose a rep. And again, it's stressful. It's tough, but I did it. Like, I mean, when I went to camp, man, I was like, I couldn't lay an egg. I couldn't stink. And I saw, I had a kid from my high school, Matt Carrick, who was a really good player, probably a better player than me in high school. And he showed up to camp, and like, he didn't do well. Pulled his hamstring on the first 40. He went on vacation for a week leading up to it. And, I was rooting for Matt, and I had guys in that building that were dying to offer Matt Carrick at Ohio State. And he ends up going to Michigan State, and he had an okay career, nondescript, 6 years and, probably 20 starts or whatever. But like, he not an NFL guy at all. But, you don't get a mulligan on this one, man. This is like playing in, like, I'm a guy that's lost 2 national championship games. Like, you don't get a redo. Like, when you don't perform at camp or dominate at camp or really blow them away, it's hard. And, I was rooting for those guys. I was rooting for at least one of the Ohio guys to get an offer today. They didn't do it. But again, I don't think that they're dead, but I just think that, Justin Fry and Mark Pantoni and Ryan Day, like, if you're going on a guy right now, it better be like, hey, this is a guy that's going to be in the class. Because if you offer one of those kids, they're going to commit like in a second, because they're not going to wait for kids from Texas and Georgia and Florida to dive in the boat and potentially take their spot. So we had another good showing today from Kidling. Larry Moon, which is real interesting. He's a corner. Aliquippa is like the hotbed for talent in football. That's Revis Island. That's Mike Ditka. It's Ty Law, Sean Gilbert, Sean Gilbert. I don't know if he was the highest paid player in the NFL, but he was close. He sat out here at the Redskins, and then the Carolina Panthers gave him like an insane, crazy deal. I'm going to throw Larry Moon's film on, but Nevada again. I think that these here he is blitzing off the edge playing corner. I think that a lot of these these skill guys are a lot easier to evaluate because it's a lot of space, a lot of they do all the kind of the movement test drills where they run through bags, and they do basically like an individual period, like in a regular Ohio State practice, where they kind of gauge how they are, and then they get to the competitive periods where it's one-on-one. And when you're like a kid like Larry Moon, who's got sticky coverage and great feet and a lot of speed and locks dudes up, I mean, it's a boon for the staff to see that, because again, it's when you're doing this stuff, this isn't when you're playing corner at these camps, like, it's not about how good you can tackle, how good are you in a zone drop and run fits. It's literally pure man-to-man coverage. Like, you're doing one-on-ones versus the best receivers, and guys like Ryan Day and Tim Walton and Brian Hartline, like, they want him to go against the best receivers and match them up and see who wins and see how competitive they are. But talk a little bit about Larry Moon. He's got a lot of upside. Again, another young guy going on him. This is a kid that, once you get that Ohio State offer, your life changes immediately, because all of a sudden, you go from, you're tweeting about, hey, I got a Akron offer, a Central Michigan, a Kansas, a Kentucky, Maryland. But then when you get that Ohio State offer, it's like, oh my God, like, I've just ascended. Because once you get that Ohio State one, then all of a sudden you're going to get LSU, you're going to get Bama, you're going to get Georgia, you're going to get Florida, you're going to get, it's kind of like, you open Pandora's box when you get a top 3 in the nation offer. But what are your thoughts? I mean, Larry Moon III, from what Joe said, was fantastic today, but your thoughts on it?
Yeah, no, fantastic player. But what was really striking to me about that was just how few players are coming out of Pennsylvania these days, relative to Ohio State. I mean, because when I was growing up, I mean, Pennsylvania was a huge part of the Ohio State recruiting plan, and especially Western Pennsylvania. that was almost considered an extension. The Ohio State, recruiting region got a lot of players out of there. Got a lot of players that they were interested in. We're always recruiting kids out of there. Now, the first thing I thought when I saw his name was, wow, it's been a bit since we've recruited defense. I'm trying to think about who was like the last defensive player that we recruited out of the state of Pennsylvania, and I'm sure I'm missing some, but it's not like it used to be. I can tell you
Yeah.
that. Pennsylvania football's kind of fallen on hard times, and specifically a defensive back. I don't know if I can remember a defensive back that we've taken out of the state of Pennsylvania.
I mean, we whiffed on Revis. Revis wanted to be a Buckeye. It was the funniest story ever. So Darrell Revis was really good friends with Rory Nickel. Rory Nickel was a tight end we took in '04 out of Beaver. They played AAU basketball together. Now, Revis was a 3-ish to maybe low 4-star-ish type corner. So it wasn't like, USC and Miami and the powerhouses at the time were on Revis. Like he ended up going to Pitt, which is great. But man, I remember I met him with Rory in Vegas, and he's like, "Man, I loved Ohio State. I really wanted to be a Buckeye." And but it was funny because in the Big 33, like Ted Ginn played against Revis in the Big 33 and scorched him. It was hilarious because they like Teddy was, the number one player in the country, and Revis was a guy who most people had never heard of at that point. But then you look back and Revis is a first ballot Hall of Famer, and he left Pitt after 3 years. And I was like, what made you decide to leave early when you left after 3 years at Pitt? And he's like, it just wasn't hard anymore. Like, I mean, everybody I went against, I just shut down and blanked him on the score sheet and whatever. So but I love him. He's, it's going to be exciting to see if this kid jumps in the fold. And, I like, we had some really good kids from Pennsylvania during my time there. And obviously the most notable is Terrell. I mean, Terrell Pryor was a guy that basically saved the program with his talent. And, we saw like the one year we didn't have him, we went 6-7 because we didn't have him to be a giant eraser with legs on offense. So, be exciting to see what this kid can do. There's a lot of really good stuff from camp today. Nevada, you had a nugget today too that was really interesting that talked about some of the guys that are changing their bodies, some of the workout stuff, some NIL stuff. Do you want to get a little bit of that? Because we had some guys that like Ty Leak, Jack Sawyer. I mean, these guys are really crushing these workouts with Coach Mick. Again, and a lot of these guys, they get their conditioning done during the day today. So some of our guys had eyes on those guys. But your thoughts on where the team is and where the coaching staff is right now as we're a few months out from training camp?
Yeah, well, again, I'll leave some of that information in there for your Buckeye Scoop members to read because we always like to post a lot of the good stuff on Buckeye Scoop. Share some of it here, but if you're not a member of BuckeyeScoop.com, you're really missing out. You want to be that best, smartest fan, go over there. But that nugget it was a pretty detailed, um, you know, report on a number of different guys who've kind of taken huge strides or during this offseason, on and off the field. Um, the big thing that I'll share is that, man, Ohio State's really kind of got an NIL dialed in right now. And that was not the way that it was in the beginning. That was not, something they were particularly good at. And, frankly, I was concerned that they were going to, struggle and fall behind some of these other schools in terms of NIL and how to implement NIL as both a defensive and offensive tool. And what I can tell you is that Ohio State's really doing a nice job with it right now. And Ohio State is taking a backseat to no one. They're basically telling their team, obviously they're not going to go out there and just bid on everybody, but if there's somebody that they want and they're going to go after them, the money will be there. And, they're not looking for the kids to get into these NIL bidding wars to just go crazy in terms of it, but that, they're committed to having sufficient NIL money that's appropriate to every player that they want and need on the team. And that's a heck of a commitment. And, the facts are under the new AD, you're kind of laser focusing the NIL program, kind of consolidating under one group and really doing a nice job of getting the money, having the money ready, and deploying it appropriately and in a responsible fashion. And I think the result is the unbelievable recruiting momentum that Ohio State has right now and in 2024 and beyond, and really good news for Ohio State fans.
Yeah, I think that, the biggest thing that's really helped catapult NIL is Gene Smith leaving. Gene Smith consistently backed the wrong NILs, and it also goes to Ohio State and our sports information department. They pushed the wrong NIL group, people that weren't consistent, people that didn't know what they were doing. So you saw cohesion fold. I mean, 1870 has been a disaster. The foundation is killing it. So I mean, again, when you want to look around at why is our roster good, why is the fundraising been there to retain the guys and go get Caleb Downs and go get a bunch of these guys, JJ Smith, like, there's one crew that's like pulling the lion's share of the weight, so, again, when people, again, I'm not going to take a victory lap, even though I'm already 100 miles ahead of the rest of the people in the media that were backing the wrong people, because, I don't have a dog in the race. I don't care. But I think that when you've got people that really know what they're doing and know how to raise money, and they've got influence, and they've got people with deep pockets, like, those are the people I bet on. I don't bet on people that are just amateur hour, and they fail at basically everything. So again, I'm happy for where we're at. The fact that, you were told that, we've got, the ability to match any NIL deal is like, it's like basically like, hey, we're ready to. Now, again, that doesn't mean that we're going to match every NIL deal. That means that, like, if there's one that we really need, we can go get it. Again, it's a lot like, imagine if you're, constructing the Kansas City Chiefs, and you've got, Mahomes is making 50 million, and then you got Travis Kelce coming up for a big deal, and then you got, like a guy like Tyreek Hill. Like, you can't pay everybody. You got to make decisions, and there's going to be teams that are desperate. There's going to be teams that'll way overpay for a guy, especially at a position that's not a real forceful, dominating position. Again, I love that we've got great wide receivers. I think it's a huge asset for our program, but we've had the greatest wide receiver room in the world for the last 4 years, and we haven't won anything. So when you can flip some of that, and you can go get David Sanders and go get some of these linemen, then I think that it changes the game. I think it changes how the roster's composed. And I think that, Ryan's starting to realize, like, we got to get a little bit better in the trenches, and you got to get better recruiting and better results. But, our quarterback play has been good. Our running back play has been good. Our defense is outstanding. And we've got, a lot of money that we've used to retain the roster, which, again, as great as it is to go sign a 4 or 5 star kid, it's way better to get Jack Sawyer to come back, or Tyleek, or Trey Henderson, or Emeka, or, a lot of these, or go get Quinshon Judkins, go get Will Howard, go get Caleb Downs. I mean, those guys, those are like getting like 7-star commitments, like literally they're that good. They're 4 or 5 year guys. They're proven they can play in college. They're seasoned. They've got a lot of leadership, like, again, like a guy like Jack Sawyer. Jack Sawyer is going to be like a unanimous captain this year. I think Trey Henderson is a heavy favorite to be a captain on offense. Was from the people I've talked to, the Woody, those guys are different level. I mean, they're hungry. Their careers, again, they've had some cute numbers and stuff, but their careers have largely been failures. I mean, they haven't won anything of note. They've never won a Big Ten title. They've never beaten Michigan. So, it's kind of all in to kind of get that, that big deodorant stick, which could be this year. This is a year where they could win everything. They could beat Michigan. They could win the Big Ten. They could win the national championship, because it's the most talented team in Ohio State history, in my opinion. I could be wrong, and you guys say, oh, well, this year, that year, 15 or 98 or whatever. But I'm like, if you go top to bottom and look at the guys that we got across these rosters, like, this is about as good as I've seen. And so, and then when you throw the next layer of it in terms of the coaching staff, like Chip Kelly, who's pushing the offensive staff to be better at everything, pushing the defensive coaches. You got Jim Knowles, who's in year 3. Everyone knows the system. He's got his lieutenant, Matt Greene, at safe. I mean, it's like, this is as dialed in as it can be. And again, our schedule is also, it's not an underhand softball pitch, but it's like, an overhand batting practice soft toss of a schedule. Like, again, this isn't Michigan's schedule. This isn't Florida's schedule. This isn't, a schedule where you're just like, oh my God, we got to survive this. I mean, we basically got to beat 2 teams. We got to beat Oregon. We got to beat Michigan. The rest of them we should run through easily. So this is one you got to cash it in. And again, I think Ryan Day's got good mindset. I think his head's stable. He's got by far the best group of people around him. Between, adding Chip Kelly and Carlos Loughlin is like God's gift from heaven, because you get a guy that you really trust to call your offense, a guy who's your mentor, a guy who taught you how to play quarterback, taught you how to coach quarterback, clinicked you and taught you how to run an offense, run a program. I mean, Chip's Ryan's biggest mentor. And so like, again, I one of my biggest mentors, probably my biggest mentor in my entire life is my high school football coach. So it's like, if I could hire him to be my defensive coordinator or offensive coordinator, it would have been the greatest hire of my entire life, because I could literally forget about that side of the ball and go focus on all the ancillary stuff you have to do as a head coach. So this will be huge. Really excited about it. And Trey looks good. You're talking about Trey, but like Trey and Quinchon look like absolute specimens at this point. Nevada, talk about those two, because I think that dynamic is going to be one of the things where we've never seen anything like having two first round running backs, two RB1s. Because we've got like this weird thing going on where it's like we have so many guys that are kind of the top tier guy, where it's like with like Denzel Burke and Davidson of Ganosa, like we have two CB1s, like two lockdown number one corners. And like that is so rare in college football, and in an era where everybody's racing to get to the NFL and be 3 and out, to have that ability. But what are your thoughts on Trey and Quinchon and what they're doing through the summer thus far?
It's next level, and what it is, it's a situation where they're both pushing each other, and the circumstances of Quinchon coming in were really weird, because Trey truly was the guy recruiting him and advocating for him and bringing him, which is just it just doesn't happen, and it just speaks to what a special person Trey is. But that kind of pushing and trying to make each other great has kind of continued on through conditioning in the off season, because those two guys are they're almost inseparable, and they work hard together. They're always trying to find ways to try to take up their physical conditioning another notch. And I can't remember ever having seen anything like this, because there's never been anything quite like this before at Ohio State, and probably a few times ever in the history of college football. So no, it's pretty remarkable. But I did want to ask you a question. This is something you touched on it about the collectives, and I touched on it today in the Nugget. But why do you think that Gene Smith was pushing some of these other collectives when they were so obviously not equipped to do? I mean, it was clear to me, and it was clear to you from day one, that some of these groups were not going to be able to get it done. Why was Gene Smith pushing them away from a group like the Foundation that was clearly able to deliver and get it done? What is your theory on that?
Well, I think the Foundation has morphed a lot since they initially started up. Initially, it was Brian and Cardell trying to raise money, and obviously Brian's got a lot of powerful friends and his family and business people that have given. And Brian's done. Again, you can say whatever you want about Brian Schottenstein. That dude has put in a lot of work to raise a lot of money to make our team really good. So again, you guys can. There's a lot of people don't like Brian. They say whatever. And again, I've read some of the stuff that like the media people that are clueless and hopeless and dumb have said about Brian. But like, that thing has morphed into having some of the most powerful guys in Columbus on their board of directors and active people. Again, it's not just like, if you look at their board, they've got guys like Urban Meyer and Terry McLaurin and Evan, guys that don't do anything. They're just basically figureheads, but they have active business people in Columbus that I know that are monsters in the community that have made humongous money, and they're part of the team now, and they work and they grind and they raise money. And, again, do they get some adulation from Ryan Day? Of course. Do they get to go out and do all that jazz? Of course. But, they've done a lot to get us Caleb, to get JJ Smith, to get a lot of the roster retention deals done, to get even more. I mean, they're doing more deals right now with second and third tier guys just to keep us competitive. Because again, you got to remember, like, it's not just like you got to pay JJ Smith and Quinchon Judkins and Trey Henderson. You got to pay your third string guys, because there's teams that are out there, that are desperate, that want to pay these guys. So you got to match some deals and, negotiate a little bit. But like again, with cohesion, with Gary Marcinek, I knew that would be a disaster. Gary Marcinek, who is a great person. I know Gary. he's a very successful financial planner for Budos Roll and Row, but he's Gene's financial planner. So like, he's not going to ask his clients that are worth hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars, to donate to a collective. So I knew that that would be a disaster. And then 1870 came along, and all I look is when I'm kind of placing bets on who's going to be successful versus not, I look at who's at the top, who are the soldiers, because the guys at the top a lot of times don't do anything, and then who are the soldiers? And the soldiers at 1870, like they fired Todd, who was from the Fan, after however 5-6 months, and then the one guy they have left, he's not really doing anything. So like again, and it's not his fault. He's just like a 25-year-old kid who I mean, he doesn't have ties in Columbus like Brian Schottenstein and Brian's father and Brian's family, and with the deals that those guys do and the charities and I mean, again, it's when I went to the foundation's deal at the Schottenstein Center and I saw the people that were there, I was like, oh my God, like it was like the who's who of Columbus was there to support the foundation because of Brian and Gary Schottenstein. I mean, they're there because they all they take care of each other. They believe they want Ohio State football to be good. Guys like Bruce Peterson, who's a monster in Columbus, great person. They're there to help out Alan Stockmeister, and so again, I look at who's behind what, because when I saw who was forming 1870, I knew it would be a dumpster fire, and it has been. But when I saw who was behind the foundation, especially after it morphed and they absorbed the basketball collective, which was called the O. Everything changed. And again, I don't care because I'm not involved in any of it, but I like it for the future of Ohio State. I know that obviously, we're very, we're the most pro Ohio State podcast in existence. So, when we can tell you guys really, really great news where, we're confident enough that we can match any NIL deal versus anybody, versus Texas, versus Oregon, versus all of the boogeymen that keep people up at night, that's great news. So just my opinion. But again, I look at this roster we got right now, man, and I'm just like, it's something where, again, Nevada and I, we gamble on everything. And if you would have said, Kirk, I'm going to give you odds like, 1,000,000 to 1 or whatever, that all these guys, these 10 guys are going to come back, and we're getting Caleb Downs, and we're getting Will Howard, and we're getting Quinshon Judkins, and we're getting Chip Kelly, plus our 10 guys that could have all gone to the draft are all coming back. Would you take it? And I'd say, no, that's a sucker bet. It's like, like we talk about these soccer matches where some nation that's got 3,000 people plays against France, who's number 1 in the world, and they beat them to death. Like, I'm not going to take the other side and say, well, maybe by some miracle of God, it'll happen, because that's where I would have been at. Hey, Kirk, this 15-leg parlay of the 10 10 of our best players who are draft eligible, the best offensive coordinator in the history of college football, Caleb Downs, the best safety in football, Quinshon, who might be the best running back in football, Will Howard, who's one of the 15 best quarterbacks from K-State transfer. I said there's no way, but here we are, and that doesn't even count Coach Laughlin, who's a humongous upgrade from Tony Alford. So again, I enjoy every day, and I know that everybody stresses out about everything and everyone has conniptions about everything, but like the way this team is constructed and the way that Ryan was able to get a guy like Chip Kelly and Tim Drevno, who's Chip Kelly's line coach from UCLA, in the building, like it's amazing. Like I mean, Ryan has been living right, he's been eating right, he's been doing right, because this team's about to be magnificent, and I can't wait for kickoff against Akron. Nevada, any thoughts before we dig into some super chats?
No, I think that's a good summary. I appreciate your thoughts on that. It was always confusing to me why Gene was doing some of that stuff, but and again, I don't want to belabor the point. We'll thank Gene for his many years of service to Ohio State, but I think we can agree that we see better days ahead with the new AD, the new president, and the new configuration of the athletic program. So onward and upward.
Well, it's going to be amazing that, we got a new guy who's been in town for a month, and we're going to announce a new Woody Hayes in the next 6 months to a year, which, again, Gene's been here since 05, and it's 24. So do the 19 years, no new building. A lot of lipstick on the pig, though. I mean, this pig has got more lipstick on it than than Moulin Rouge. But the new guy, Ross, he gets it. And I think that's like putting nitrous oxide into our collective work, which is great because, again, it's got to be, you can't hide the list of donors. You can't, you can't be ham-handed and say, hey, I'm going to, you can't talk to our guys because we need money for our development. And you got to open it up and say, hey guys, we need help because if the thing that I think Ross Bjork understands is that if football is great, I'm talking great. I'm talking top 3, top 2 program in the country, bang out a national title every 5 to 10 years. Like everyone else gets to eat. And I'm talking eat like wild hogs, in those videos where they trap the hogs in Texas. Like watch those on TikTok where they drop the gates and the hogs eat the corn. Like that's what the eating's like. When football wins, the fundraising goes absolutely crazy. The morale is incredible, and everybody else gets to eat. So again, Ross Bjork gets that a lot more than Gene ever did, which is absolutely fantastic for the trajectory of the program. I got some super chats fired up, so we're gonna get rolling. Jermaine Goins, thank you for the 10. Appreciate you. Is Jelani Thurman starting this year? He seems like he has underperformed so far in his career. I blame this on the tight end coach to not develop his room. Am I wrong? Nevada, I've been talking a lot. I'm gonna let you take this first before I can go sharpen my claws.
Yeah, I mean, yes, Jelani Thurman should start. Yes, Jelani hasn't been as good or as impactful as maybe we thought / hoped that he would be. Um, a lot of that's on Jelani. A lot of that's on Jelani because Jelani has all the tools in the world and has just got to put it together. I mean, he's the classic story of the guy that has it all, and we're all waiting patiently for the light to go on, and there are glimmers the light is going on. So I don't want to be all negative about Johnny Thurman because I think Johnny Thurman could leave here being one of the best tight ends to ever play at the position. I also don't want to just be the guy that clowns on Keenan Bailey, but he's not a great coach. I'm just telling you, he's not a great coach. We always try to be honest with you on the show. We love the staff, we love the alignment, we love the guys that we have on it. And I'm just telling you, he's not a great coach, and I'm not sure he's a guy that lends himself to having a great staff because I'm not sure if the other people on staff really trust him or really, I'm just not sure where he's at and where his head's at and what he's doing. And again, I know that sounds mean, and I'm not trying to be mean. I'm just trying to artfully share information with you guys regarding what the staff is. But look, Jelani's all of his issues are not on the position coach. The position coach is ultimately responsible, but the person who's ultimately responsible is the player. And Jelani has got such an abundance of gifts. He can be absolutely as good as he wants to be. And I'm starting to see glimpses that he's starting to put it together. And I actually think he's going to have a big year in an absolutely tight end friendly Chip Kelly offense. So I'm absolutely optimistic about what 2024 holds for him.
Well, I think Jelani is Carlos Hyde. I think he's a guy. Alex Boone was like that. I mean,
Mr.
there's
Barton,
a lot of.
Are you contemplating?
I don't think so. Can you not hear me? Nevada, can you hear me? I don't know if you can hear me. Well, anyways, I think I'm on green, so you guys in the chat can tell me if you're not hearing. Well, Jelani, again, sorry, Nevada's dialing back in. Jelani is a classic. He's a kid. He's an underachiever. He's a guy who needs a pretty swift foot up his hind end pretty consistently. And again, there's nobody that was higher on Jelani than us. I mean, we watched his highlight tape, I think 40 times last year. And he's got major ability. Now he played at a powerhouse school in Georgia where, they beat the absolute death out of kids every single week because they were playing. It was like, every week for them was like the USSR hockey team versus, Bosnia or Kosovo on the ice. They beat the tar out of them every week. So I think that they this is a test of Keenan Bailey. And again, I've heard very, very poor reports on Keenan Bailey. I don't know Keenan Bailey, but I talked to a lot of people that know Keenan Bailey, and it hasn't been great. He's a guy that, and again, if you want to judge Keenan Bailey on something, how well does he develop? Jelani Thurman. This tight ends group it's the worst room in the entire Woody Hayes. It's not even close. When G Scott is your starting again, I know G Scott is whatever. Like he's a guy that normally would never start at Ohio State, but Cade's gone and we've missed on kids and some kids haven't developed. So the room's not good. So I mean, this is where when you've got the worst coach on staff and the worst talent room on staff combined, it's something where I think Chip Kelly's got to get involved. I think Ryan Day's get involved. I think Mickey Marotti has got to get involved. And the by far the guy that has more talent than everybody in the room combined is Jelani. But he's got to decide if he wants to go do it. And again, I'm nothing but fair. I might be critical, I might be pointed, but I'm fair. And again, if Jelani, again, I hope Jelani proves me wrong. I mean, Jelani started the bowl game as a true freshman. He started the bowl game at Ohio State, and then he didn't play again. He played like 5 plays, and then he was benched. So I don't know what that was about, but for us to be absolutely optimum, Jelani could overtake G Scott. Now, again, I don't think G Scott is going to overtake G Scott. He's a senior, kind of like a little bit of an emotional leader, whatever. But again, I think you have to be more productive to be like a great emotional leader, great leader, whatever. And G is not. He hasn't been productive his whole career. And I think that Jelani's the guy that needs to work to supplant him. Now, I don't think he will, just because a lot of times they start a senior in kind of a ceremonial role. But Jelani's going to be a big part of this team. And it's up to him to decide if he wants to. And there's a lot of guys that do that. I mean, again, it's a tale as old as time where this kid could be a 3-and-out first round tight end, or he could be a guy that is he's a free agent after 4 or 5 years, and he's trying to latch on, during mini camps and during OTAs to try to make an NFL team. So it's the spread on him is incredible. And again, it's like Carlos Hyde. If Urban Meyer didn't show up, I don't think Carlos Hyde ever turns into Carlos Hyde. But Urban saw Carlos. Carlos was very talented, but he was moody, had a bad attitude, whatever. And again, I'm not being a hater. I'm just being real. I was there. But Urban showed up, and Stan Drayton showed up, and Mickey Marotti showed up. And, Stan was there in 11, but he's receivers coach, so he wasn't Carlos's guy. But, they put all 3 of them put their foot so far up Carlos's, hind end that he had no choice but to go and be great. And, in 13, he had as good of a season as a running back's ever had at Ohio State. I mean, he was dominating. And that was the year where we averaged 7 yards a carry or something crazy, 6.7 or something insane, because we had Braxton and Carlos running the read option, and we had the best offensive line that we've had at Ohio State, maybe in my lifetime, in 13. And we just dominated in all people. And shout out Corey Linsley, who was released by the Chargers in a procedural move. He's retiring with a heart ailment. But we had Mewhort, we had Norwell, we had Taylor Decker, and we just would bushwhack teams every week. So, but yeah, Jelani's got to grow up. And again, this is if you want to say, hey, how do you grade Keenan Bailey? Is it this or is it this? It's Jelani Thurman. And how does he do this year? Because if he doesn't sprout and develop, then it's time to go get a real coach and not a guy who's just a friend to all the players and a homie. Jim Jackson, thank you for the 10. I was watching yesterday's show for the 3rd time at a restaurant bar when the guy next to me says, I watched the Scoop too. Keep up the good work, fellas. Condolences to Paul's family. I appreciate you, my man, Jim. Again, I know you're on here every night. I know you're a Seminole like Kimmy is, but I just appreciate you being on here every night. But yeah, it's amazing because I'll just be out randomly having lunch or whatever, or, going to go to the mall, whatever, go to the Apple store, pick something up. And I run into people that watch the show, and it never ceases to amaze me because people love it. And I get such great feedback, and they love hearing me and Nevada kind of dissertate what's going on for the day in Ohio. And the fact that we go every single day is insane to people, but hey, we're a little bit wild over here and we're crazy, and it's what makes us different. So we appreciate you guys so much to show up each and every night, and we're glad that we're a part of your day. Again, I know you guys are very routine based, and we just try to crank this content for you. So Nevada, Jim Jackson says, thank you. And again, thank you for the 10, Jim. It's very generous of you. I was watching yesterday's show for like the third time today at a restaurant slash bar. When the guy next to me says, I watched the Scoop too. He says, keep up the good work and condolences to Paul's family. And also, again, reiterating condolences to Paul's family. But your thoughts about it?
Yeah, no, it's been amazing. Just, I mean, I'm not in Columbus, but I still get, my kids will get feedback, my wife will get feedback, and yeah, the Scoop family definitely, the tentacles are long and deep and go across all ways, walks of life and stuff like that. So it's a really fun community that we've created here, and that we're all. And when I say we, I mean all of us together have created, and it's a lot of fun, and I don't take for granted being part of it, and that's one of the reasons why we do it every day is because we enjoy it so much, and we enjoy being part of it, and again, just appreciate the kind words.
Absolutely. ZZM, thank you for the 5. Did you see Will Howard's interview? His attitude is right. He said, taking everything to the next level here. What do you think of his comment? I did not see the interview, but I've talked to a lot of people that are around Will Howard and really like Will Howard. And I've talked to some big time quarterback gurus who really like Will Howard's makeup, his moxie, some people that have seen him work out in the offseason when he's, away from the team. And, I think that when you're a quarterback and you're the de facto face of the franchise, he's going to end up ascending to being the leader of the team because he's a quarterback. This is part of what it is. Like you're the guy that touches the ball on every play. You're the guy that has to get guys lined up and organized. And if people don't believe in you, then it's going to be tough sledding. I've played with quarterbacks that were great leaders. I've played with quarterbacks that are horrifically bad leaders, and guys like Troy Smith were fantastic leader. I mean, the guy was as good of a leader as there's ever been in school history, and he was easy to play for. He's got a block for, and when you have a guy who's got that charisma and does that kind of stuff, it makes your life a lot better, a lot easier. But I think Will Howard's got, he's made a lot of headway in the last month. They had that 3-week break. He stayed behind. He worked out. He did a lot of extra work in the Woody Hayes under the cloak of darkness, and I think it made him a lot more comfortable in the offense. I think that, when you're a quarterback and you're a transfer and you've got 1 year, it's like you got to assimilate to that offense as fast as possible, man. Because I'm telling you, you got to know the terminology like the back of your hand, and you have to know exactly what Ryan Day wants. You have to know mechanically what he wants, and also Chip Kelly to a lesser degree. Ryan's still, as much as Chip's the quarterback coach, like Ryan is he's the overlord. He's always going to be the quarterback coach. So, but he really, really put in a lot of work over the 3 weeks off. He wasn't in Bermuda or in the Philippines or Dominican Republic. I mean, he was grinding. So again, he's got about a 7-month window right now that could change his life, because either he can be a 7th round pick or he could be a 1st round pick. And it's up to him to make everything as tight and as perfect as he can. Because that's why he came here. I mean, he came here because he gets to play with the best players in the country. He gets to be coached by the best quarterback coach in the country. He picked us over SC when I remember there was a time in December where we called him to Ohio State, and a bunch of the idiots on the other sites were crystal balling him to SC, and I was like, that's not what I heard. That's not what I heard with the amount of intel I had on that one, and the amount of Ryan Day's meeting him in Dallas during an official visit, a recruiting visit. I mean, we had that thing nailed. And I think that he's got a big time upside. Nevada. Did you see Will Howard's interview? His attitude is right. He said, we're taking everything to the next level here. What are your thoughts on that comment?
Well, the young people, they like to use the expression that like that Will Howard is him. I mean, that's Will Howard is him. He is that guy. He is the leader. On a team that's got a lot of leadership. But I've always felt that the quarterback position was kind of a overpowered position in terms of needing that leadership. Leadership emanates from that position. The confidence emanates from that position. And as great as C.J. Stroud was when he was here, would he have been better had he been a vocal leader on top of it? In my opinion, yes. So I just think that having that alpha dog, having that guy that the other guys go around. I mean, Will Howard's the guy, man. I mean, he's the guy. he's completely authentic. He walks the walk. He talks the talk. The guys believe in him. They've bought in, and the work that he's been able to do in the offseason with Chip Kelly, with Ryan Day, and the amount of coaching that he's received is really kind of unprecedented. And the stuff that they're working on with the comms is really, really exciting. And I can't wait to see it. I think of all the things that I'm excited to see this year, seeing how Ohio State implements the comm system specifically, down, boiling down to like a granular level, down to the Chip Kelly interface with Will Howard, calling out defenses, tendencies, and what you should be looking for. I think it might be the thing that I'm most excited about seeing this year, and it's going to be a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah, I think that's going to be a huge edge for Ohio State. And again, it kills teams that steal signals. I mean, that's what is the most exciting part of the whole deal for me, is the fact that we have like legit fairness across the board. And I think it's going to be huge for what we're doing. Poohbeard12, thank you for the 10. Appreciate you, my friend. Feels like the writing's on the wall for Howard to start, and competition is in name only. Seems like the same way with saying Tavian St. Clair the next 3 to 4 years. What's been told to Devin/Lincoln about their OSU futures? I agree. I mean, again, like Will Howard they spent a lot of money on Will Howard to get him here. So again, if you're and again, I'm also going to put again on a t-shirt, because I know that someone pointed out to me that I say again a lot, and I catch myself saying it. So, we did the massive. I'm going to do one that says again instead of like dash Kirk, because I like to say that. But, the t-shirt drops are just going to be nothing but like little quirky stuff that comes from here that you'll wear the shirt and people say, how is that funny? That doesn't make any sense. Well, you can watch the Scoop, because they do it every night between that and the chat and everything else we do. There's all these little idiosyncrasies that if you're in like the little Scoop family, you totally get. But I think that, Will Howard got, again, Kyle McCord got offered a lot of money by other schools, or excuse me, not a lot of money. I mean, Will Howard got a lot of money to supplant Kyle McCord. They could even Kyle, this much less money than they gave Will Howard. And they didn't, and Ryan Day, people can say whatever they want about Ryan Day. They can say, can't beat Michigan, can't win the big game, whatever, but he is not scared. So when it was time to rip the Band-Aid off and say, Kyle McCord, go bye-bye, and we're going to go get something better, and he went out and got Will Howard, it proved to me, man, that like, I will never worry about the quarterback position for the rest of my life as long as he's there. Because if it's not an A-tier guy or an S-tier guy, he's not going to go for it. And he'll upset the apple cart to get what he wants. So I think Will Howard's going to be fantastic. I think that it's miraculous that we got all 5 guys to say. But I also, I don't know what kind of, opportunities that Lincoln and Devin had. I mean, again, like if Kyle McCord was our starter and was 3rd team All Big Ten, and he ends up going to Syracuse, which was, they lost 100-0 in their bowl game versus South Florida and Alex Golish. Like, where does that put Devin and Lincoln in terms of the pecking? If Kyle McCord gets turned down by Nebraska and every other team with a pulse, and he ends up at Syracuse where they got a new staff, and it's just not a real desirable. I can't remember the last great player since Donovan McNabb and Marvin Harrison and Dwight Freeney that has come out of Syracuse. Now, again, correct me if I'm wrong. So I don't know what Devin and Lincoln had for offers. I know that they both had offers from Iowa, but Iowa is like, that's where quarterbacks go to die, basically. You're going to have bad skill. You're going to have a great tight end, Luke Lachey, but your skill guys are going to be terrible. Their offense could barely score 7 points a game. So, they're here, but I think that, if you put a gun to my head and say who's going to start next year, I think Julian Sain is the guy. Julian Sain's getting a lot of gaudy praise from Ryan Day. Julian Sain, and again, it's nothing against Devin or Lincoln, but Julian Sain is ridiculously talented. And again, there's no shame in when a guy who could be the next Aaron Rodgers beats you out, because that's his ceiling. And I think Julian Sain is, it's like God, again, a lot of stars aligned. And it's funny when I talk about these transfers, and I talk about Caleb, and I talk about Quinshon Judkins, and I talk about Seth McLaughlin, I don't mention Julian Sain enough. Julian Sain is like God's gift from heaven that Nick Saban took off, and this kid jumped into the fold because he's that dude, and I'm really excited to see him run the show next year. This is my opinion. Nevada Poohbeard asks, with the writing on the wall for Howard, feels like the writing is on the wall for Howard to start, and the competition is in name only. And again, that's something that happens a lot where they say it's a competition, and I'm not ready to name the starter yet, and we'll name the starter when the first quarterback runs out of the after we get the kickoff and he runs on the field for the first time, then you'll know. But I think it's the name only. I totally agree with you. He also says seems the same way with saying Tavian St. Clair the next 3 to 4 years. What's been told to Devin and Lincoln about their OSU futures? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, I think Devin's been told, I shouldn't say think, I know Devin's been told that he's going to have a chance to compete for the job, and he believes he is competing for the job. And in a long season like this, he's going to be one play away from being the starting quarterback, one injury away. So, I think that's Devin's mindset. As for Lincoln, Lincoln still believes. And, should Lincoln be here as opposed to an Indiana or an Illinois or a Purdue or something like that? Not sure. I think he's. I mean, I know he's behind those guys, but could it be a great story where he comes from behind and beat guys out? Sure. I mean, look, anything can happen against guys. I never like to write kids off, but it's a tough road for him because not only you have to dodge the Will Howard, Devin Brown bullets, but then, as you mentioned, you've got Julian Sane coming, and then you've got Tavian St. Clair coming after that, and then oh, by the way, Aaron Nolan is lurking around the room as well. So it's hard, but hey, as long as they're here, I could not believe that Ryan Day was able to keep all 5 quarterbacks through the second portal season, but he did. I believe that happened for a reason. I'm not sure exactly what that reason was, but I respect the heck out of those kids for sticking out. I think all too often these days people kind of cut and run, maybe before they know exactly the lay of the land. And I really respect all 5 of these kids for hanging in there and duking it out. Like I said, I really, really respect that a lot.
Well, and I've said this 1,000 times, but like, I've been recruited, I've been in the NFL drafted, whatever. So I've been around like teams and I've learned the language and what goes on. It's like, if I'm Devin and Lincoln, man, I am like, I'm not jumping in this portal until I know where I'm going. Again, it's a lot like in life. Like you don't leave your job if you have a 9 to 5 that pays for the meat on the table for your kids, and it's like you don't leave that job until you've got the offer letter signed for your next job and they've got your desk nameplate ready to make and that whole night. So it's like I think that they sat around and they might have had more ambition to leave, but they figured out where they figure out, well, Kyle McCord ended up at Syracuse, so he beat me out. So where am I going to end up? And again, that's, I've seen guys like Robbie showing off transfer to Delaware and got beaten to a pulp and didn't make it. And God, who's the kid that we had from Georgia? Antonio Hinton. He went to like Georgia Southern and got destroyed when he was. So it's like some of our quarterbacks that have been beaten out and transferred out. Like it hasn't always. It doesn't. There's only been one. Like Joe Burrow is like the Highlander, where there's only one. The rest of them have been, hey man, have fun, but you're gonna go to a team that's not real good and the line's not good and you're gonna get killed and your NFL dreams are gonna die on the vine. So I'm a big infrastructure guy. I say it all the time. But when these kids are looking around at the deals, like, man, I'm not going to Iowa if I'm a quarterback. Like, I want to throw the ball. I don't want to run power and ISO 65 tight zone every 45 plays out of 60 in a game. But that's what you'd be doing if you were there. So it's beneficial that they came out because I'd rather just throw my hat in the race and let the chips fall for where they may with another year at Ohio State through summer camp and through fall camp, because again, Will Howard's gone and there might be guys that transfer out. You might have a great deal, guys could get hurt. Like there's a lot of reason to stick around Ohio State and just give it one last college try to see what you can do. Ben G, thank you for the 20. Appreciate you, my friend. Thank you for being an ultra member. Thank you for being a Hall of Fame member. Nevada, love today's nugget with strength and conditioning intel. But made me wonder how has the strength program changed since Mick first started, and the criticisms that Mick has become too much of a, are the criticisms that Mick has become too much of a walk around coach valid? Um, we What are your thoughts, Nevada? Again, I don't I've never heard that Mick has been too much of a walk around coach, but what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, look, he's certainly. I mean, when he came in, his responsibilities were obviously laser focused on the football program. He was handpicked by Urban Meyer to do that, and his job has certainly morphed over time as they've tried to, get him more money, more responsibility. Um, kind of almost like a chairman emeritus type of thing, but he's still very, very hands on. So I think that Mick has just kind of evolved. His strength and conditioning has evolved, and the good thing about Mick is he is always going to the smartest guys, and you know the names, Kirk, the super consultants that come in and give you the latest tips on strength and conditioning and what they're doing over in Bulgaria, or what the smartest, because that is a business that is dominated by people that are always pushing the envelope, thinking of new ways, trying to find, uh, new iterations and new twists on old things about, basically how to make people stronger and faster and more agile. And what I'd say is, in my opinion, I think he's gone outside more and really been been more of a collaborator as he's kind of gotten there. But he's operating at such a high level right now. I put our strength and conditioning program second to none, and there was a reason why he was the first person that Urban Meyer called when he put the staff together at Ohio State. It's that important of a position. It's A plus 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 important, and I think Mick's doing it. He's doing it different, but he's not doing it all himself anymore. But boy, he's operating at a high level and doing a terrific job.
Yeah, I totally agree, and I think Mick is he's advanced a lot of things. They've got more technology. Again, when you see these guys running around, they've got their little catapult things on. They look like sports bras. It's kind of hilarious, but I'll throw that on the screen right now. But these guys they monitor everything. So here you see the Zephyr. They call it the Zebra. So they got these little sensors in the shoulder pads where you can see how fast guys are running. They wear these at every workout. They wear these at every practice. They monitor load management. They monitor to make sure the guys aren't pulling hamstrings. So I think that they've gotten progressive. I think strength and conditioning is something where you're consistently getting progressively better and better and better. And again, Mick is the highest paid guy in the game. It's not some cosmic accident that our kids look fantastic. Our kids perform well at the combines. Our kids look great in uniform, and they're explosive and they run really well. And I think that the strength and conditioning has never been an objective. And I think Mickey Marotti is outstanding at what he does. So, again, I think that no matter what, if you're at Ohio State or you're in a position of power, you're going to be criticized. So I mean, there's obviously people that say, oh, well, we should hire this guy or hire this guy because a guy pulled a hamstring or a guy had a soft tissue injury or whatever. But sometimes it's the kid. Sometimes it's just the sport. Sometimes it's just it's bad luck. I mean, again, I've seen guys that they train, they stretch, they do Pilates, they do everything you can to avoid soft tissue, and they're still soft tissue guys. And like Marshawn Lattimore was a classic. I mean, he pulled his hamstring I think 20 times when he was here, and missed a lot of time, did a lot of whatever, and it was one of those deals where he figured it out, and he's had an incredible career. He's made a ton of money in the league. But Mickey, that was an issue for him and Kerry Combs, and they got it fixed, and he had a monster final season and was a high first round pick, and he's done really well. So I think that sometimes people that think they're experts because they've worked out at Lifetime Fitness, they're it's just not valid. But that's just me. And again, I'm very loyal to Mick. I think Mick does a great job. I've seen him in action. And again, like being a strength coach, as much as it is walk around and whatever, it's building the culture of the team. And our guys, they're tough, they work hard, and I don't know many coaches that would complain about the workouts that Mickey does, or that they're not tough, or they're not built to be um, great. So so I let me see. Patriot, thank you for the 20. Again, thank you for the troops. Kirk, there's a new Twin Peaks up here in Youngstown's calling your name. Nevada OH.
I
Yeah, I really appreciate what they've done so far. Again, them and Buffalo Wild Wings have been great partners. So yeah, I'll come check that one out. I imagine it's probably on Boardman, so maybe for the golf outing we can stop by there and have some dinner. That ownership group has been fantastic to work with. So again, we really appreciate all that they do, per usual. And again, I also appreciate you supporting the troops. You put that in all of your chats, Patriot. So thank you for being on here. Nevada, for the troops. Kirk, there's a new Twin Peaks up here in Youngstown, and it's calling your name. Again, appreciate our sponsors so much. They really help with this program. And we actually have a new meetup that we're going to announce this week, but we got it finalized today, so it'll be something really special. Meetup number 2. We'll announce that soon. But your thoughts on what Patriot said?
Well, again, just incredibly generous, and just always appreciate people paying it forward. But a Buckeye Scoop golf outing, July 30th, Youngstown Country Club. If you're a member of Buckeye Scoop, you have an invitation, and that is one of the best days of the year. If you want to have fun and you want to hang out, and either whether you play golf or whether you don't play golf, because I know you don't play golf, but you have a great time going out there and just driving the cart and having a few cocktails and saying hello to folks and having a nice lunch. Great day, terrific thing. So I encourage everybody that's part of the Buckeye Scoop family. July 30th, um, Youngstown Country Club. David Pinterick will be the hostess with the mostest that day, and hey, everyone's invited. Hopefully, you guys make a point and make it a big outing, because it's going to be a great afternoon, great morning, great day, and I hope everybody's there.
Yep, absolutely. Appreciate it. Jared, Brandon, appreciate you, man. They've been an ultra member. The 100 is exceptionally generous. Thank you so much, being an incredible member of here. This is interesting. So my misguided nephew, a cheat again fan, buys his jerseys from overseas for super cheap. Maybe that's why the MDen is sinking. Any updates on that mess? He says he's going to put more energy in rooting for the Lions now. The young fans know it's over. Nevada OH.
I
Well, I think that the jersey thing is interesting because, the overseas counterfeit jerseys are, you get a lot more customization, a lot more possibilities. They're way cheaper. And I think that I don't mind it. I mean, I see a ton of Ohio State fans that wear the jerseys from overseas. And, I think that crushes Nike. But, the Lions are one of the top 5 or 6 teams in the league in the NFL, and Michigan is going to sink to the bottom of the Big Ten pretty quick here. So I get it. I think that, the MDN thing is really interesting because, again, they just won a national title. So you would think that when you're in the memorabilia world, that would be, the absolute boon for what you're doing. But it's really not. It's been stunning, And again, I think that it just reeks of what's going on in the program, and I think it really reeks on the lack of excitement around the program when they see what is going on. So if you can't sell sweatshirts and hoodies and T-shirts and mugs and things that say 23 national champions, like, I don't know when you're ever going to be able to sell anything, because when Ohio State wins a title, when they won a title in 14 and in 02, like, you couldn't keep shirts on the shelves, especially the first couple of days. Like, people were waiting outside to buy inventory for everybody they knew. And it's always a boondoggle for the people. So, but your thoughts on that? And again, I just, I think that it spells doom for Michigan because I just think people know what's coming, and even if they don't know what's coming, I think that there's a lot of people that are just kind of in a holding pattern to see what's the final answer as to what's going on with the NCAA before they donate money, buy more gear. Because if they get smashed by the NCAA, which we predict is going to happen, people don't want to rock that stuff. It's kind of like when Jim Tressel got fired and the tattoo gate and we were the laughing stock of college football, or like when we lose, like if we lose a big game, if we lose to Michigan or we lose to Georgia or we lose to Florida or whatever, like in a championship game, like people don't want to go out and buy Ohio State gear. They don't want to wear the gear. They're embarrassed. And I think that that's kind of the aura that we're getting from Michigan right now. So, but yeah, I just real curious about your thoughts on that, Nevada. Again, Jared says his misguided nephew buys his jerseys from overseas for super cheap. Maybe that's why the MDN is sinking. Any updates on that mess? He says he's going to put more energy in rooting for the Lions out. The fans knows it's over. Nevada OH.
No, look, the Michigan investigation continues. The damage has already been done, though. The damage has already been done to the brand. The fans know that's why they've turned aside. They stopped buying the gear. It just they're kind of in a lot of turmoil. But I want to. There was like a minor point made in that post, but I want to bring it out. I'm a Packers fan, and so it's like I'm not just like anti everything that's not Packers and things like that because you mentioned the Lions, and I like Dan Campbell. Man, I like Dan Campbell. Like, so I can respect an opponent if they have something that's worthy of respect. And like the Packers Lions aren't supposed to like each other, but man, I like Dan Campbell and I respect the heck out of the Lions and the job that they're doing. So they're kind of a guilty pleasure of mine. Um, Frankly, I used to feel the same way about Michigan. I used to feel like at least they were a worthy opponent, and that's gone. I mean that's gone. All of the worthiness has gone with their cheating and their pompous attitude and their denial and everything else that's gone with it. And I think that everything there is why everybody in college football has turned against them, but even their own fans have turned away from them because they know what happened. And I think once the full thing is laid out, because the NCAA, one thing you'll know is when it comes out, it'll be a very thorough recitation of facts. I just don't know how you come back from that because I think it's going to be absolutely devastating to Jim Harbaugh, to Ward Manuel, to the president, to the entire organization, and I'm not sure they ever come back from the shame.
I totally agree with you on that, and I'm excited for it. Like I'm excited to see these guys fail, and I think it's going to be great for Ohio State, and it's going to be great for college football to see these guys get smashed. Josh Dillon, thank you for the 5. What's up, fam? Sorry I'm late. We needed a Nevada bet segment every week during the season. Also, any news on recruits and scum? Go Bucks and go Bolts. I like that. I think a Nevada bet segment, especially if it's tied to college football, random lines and things that we're looking at or we're going heavy on, I think is smart. Again, you should tell Dagestani Poppy. He's been killing it on the UFC bets recently. Dagestani Poppy is his Twitter handle. He posts picks each and every week for UFC fights. Those are always great. Recruits and scum. I mean, they're a bunch of 3 stars, and I mean, they got 5 kids committed right now. They might have 6. I think another one might have committed today, but it's pretty bad right now. So, it's really interesting, and I think that the lack of excitement, and Nevada said this, he nailed it last night when he said, when you've got a national championship and you're the defending national champions and you got 3 5-star or you have 3 3-stars and 2 4-stars committed, that's crazy. Like Ohio State basically has as many 5-stars committed as they have entire commitments. So, yeah, it's kind of stunning. It's kind of shocking. But it's not, because again, I think a lot of these kids are, kids are smart. And again, the thing that is going on right now with NIL, these kids and these parents have never been more hip to the game. They've never been smarter. They've never been more astute. They've never been more business oriented than they are right now. So again, like with Vernell Brown, his dad went to Florida. His grandpa went to Florida. football players, love the Florida Gators, but that place is a smoldering hole right now, and they're probably gonna have a new coach. So, do you want to send your kid to a place where you don't even know who the head coach is going to be? No. Like Michigan, with what's going on, if you've got good people around your kid, and again, these kids, their goal is to develop, win games, have a great career, go to the NFL in that order. Like, do you want to send your kid to Michigan where they could have restrictions, they could have a show cause, you don't know what coaches are going to be there, they've got an all new staff? Like, I wouldn't. I'd want to play wait and see how the season starts off and how they are, and let's get to mid-season to see how they are, because they got to play Texas, they got to play Oregon. I mean, it's crazy town at this point. But Nevada, love your thoughts. Josh Dillon says, "What's up, fam? Sorry I am late. We needed a Nevada Bets segment every week during the season. Also, any news on recruits and scum? Go Bucks, go Bolts. Your thoughts?"
Yeah, no, we'll definitely be discussing, but we'll obviously be discussing any of the lines that are Ohio State centric, totals, individual props, bets, kind of how we see the game. And last year, if you remember, we were really good. I had a really good hand on the team. Um, yeah, I think against the spread last year, I was something like 10-3 or 11-2 or something like that. Obviously missed on the Cotton Bowl, notably when Devin Brown got hurt. That was unfortunate. But yeah, had a really good year betting on Ohio State last year. I think we'll continue to do that, and as we see any more games that we think are particularly interesting, we'll definitely flag them. As for Michigan's recruiting, I just don't have any words. I mean, it's everything I thought it would be, though. I thought it would be, you can't lose your entire staff and all those relationships they built up and have a national scandal hit your program, and then you have and have no local recruiting base and have a great recruiting class. It just doesn't work that way. And I'll extend that to this season. You can't have a great season when you've lost all your staff, you've lost a ton of veteran leadership, your schedule gets demonstrably more difficult. Um, you're going to lose games. It's just the way it is, and it's been that way since the beginning of time, and it will be that way in 2024. And the worst thing for Michigan fans is this is as good as it gets right now. This is the absolute zenith peak for you guys right now. It's all downhill from here, and it's going to be bad for a very, very, very long time. So you better get used to mediocrity, boys.
I totally agree. Dick Buck, thank you for the sub real good. Who takes first snap as RB1? I'll say Trey Henderson. Who starts at will linebacker? I'm going to say CJ Hicks. Nevada, do you have any differential there?
No, I mean, I could go Quinshawn and Sonny Styles just to be provocative, but I think you got it. I think you got it right. The running back position, though, I mean, there are a lot of. I love Trey Henderson. Might be one of my favorite kids, favorite players that's ever played at Ohio State for just so many reasons. But Quinshawn may be better than he is, and that's saying. I mean, and again, we're talking about various degrees of greatness here, so this is not a shot at Trey Henderson or saying that Trey Henderson, but Quinshawn's really freaking good. So that's definitely a 1A, 1A type of situation. And I'm loving what I'm hearing on both. I thought CJ Hicks was outstanding the second half of spring ball. I thought Sonny, the last quarter of spring ball, was outstanding. So you've got two guys that are clearly responding to the coaching from Laurinaitis. He's high on both of them, and I think they're both going to be just tremendous standout players for Ohio State on a legendarily good defense.
Yeah, I totally agree. Jim Dushel, one of the greatest human beings in the world, has knee replacement surgery tomorrow. Man, I hope you feel better. Thank you for all you do. Thank you for your friendship. Is a monster in the golf and horse racing scene. Big Buckeye Scoop guy, rocks his Ohio State Buckeye Scoop stuff everywhere he goes. Wore the Buckeye Scoop hat at the Kentucky Derby in a suit, which is amazing. So I hope you feel better. I appreciate your friendship, my friend. Thank you so much. Nevada, Jim is really tied in. He's worked the Masters for the last 25 years. Took, I think, 1 or 2 years off in that stretch. Monster dude. Your thoughts?
Yeah, unbelievable supporter, and hope everything goes well, and hopefully, um, you know, up and running around. And do we know where the surgery is being held at there, Mr. Barton?
I don't know. I was hoping it'd be at Twin Peaks so I could see him because that's where I usually see him at. But I don't
Yeah.
know, Jim.
If
Where's
it,
it being at? He's literally texting me right now. So wherever it's at, I hope that they've got chicken wings and Mick Ultra for you.
yeah, and hot girls, that always helps
Yes,
with the rehab. You know what I'm saying? Yeah.
it
No,
does. It does help.
yes.
Nothing will get the knee fibers healing quicker than that. Mellow 7, thank you for being an ultra member. Thank you for the 5. Georgia thinks they're getting David Sanders. What say you? Well, they thought they were getting Bo Jackson too, and we saw how that turned out when the national guys were saying, "Oh, Georgia's leading for Bo Jackson and the winds of change." And I, again, I'll circle back. But what I was told from people very close to the David Sanders camp is that Georgia's not in it. So something might have changed over the last couple of weeks, but that Georgia culture is something that causes a lot of parents to pause because they've had a lot of incidents, and again, a lot of it is stuff that has actually been, some of it's been reported, arrests, the speeding, obviously the recruiting girl who got the kid killed. It was awful the day of the national championship parade. I mean, they've had a ton of issues down there. So, again, if you're a mom and you've got a superstar kid and that's the asylum that you're sending them into, is that great? I don't know, but it just what I was told is they're not in it. So they went and visited him again, courteous to him again, but it wasn't. I think that the culture down there is a big question mark. And again, they win a lot of games, ultra talented. I think Kirby Smart's the best coach in college football, but that culture is wild now, and it ain't for everybody. So, yeah. Nevada, Mello, again, thank you for being ultra member. Thank you for the 5. Says UGA, Georgia, thanks for getting David Sanders. What say you? Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, you kind of stole my line there. I mean, it was just a little bit ago that everybody was saying that Bo Jackson was going to Georgia, and I was like the lone voice of the wilderness crying out, saying, "Guys, don't write off Bo Jackson. I don't think this is happening." But with David Sanders, like, you never say never in recruiting, but our information is pretty good on this. It's pretty firsthand. I don't think it's a good fit for him. Could he go to Georgia? Sure, I would. I wouldn't bet my last money off. Take money off of Finland soccer and put it on David Sanders recruiting or anything like that. But I would certainly. I certainly like Ohio State's position. I certainly like the work that Justin Fry does. I certainly like the work that Monica Daniels has done, and I think Ohio State's getting him. But we'll continue to dig, and if my opinion on that changes at any point in time, I'll be sure to bring that up.
Yeah, I agree, and we'll see. Again, I think that in the era of modern, and again, I love NIL as much as any human being in the world, but the only thing I don't like about it is it makes a lot of these guys muckrake and shake up the dirt on the bottom of the ocean because they're trying. If you got Georgia in on you, and you got Bama in on you, you got Texas and LSU and Florida and Miami, it's like it drums up the offers, I feel like. So go visit Georgia, go visit these big time schools. And Georgia's not a big NIL power, but I don't think it hurts his bargaining chip when you tell some of these national recruiting guys, "Oh, Georgia was amazing. Georgia's really good. Better sharpen your pencil when you're making that next offer for the NIL." Because like David Sanders is an NIL kid, like you have to pay to get that kid, and he's worth it because when you can get a first round left tackle, like you get what you pay for. So again, but I don't think Georgia's in it. And again, I commit there tomorrow, but from what people I talked to that know David Sanders, that wasn't what I was given. ZZM, thank you for the 5. Several of us have been trolling a scum channel. I got gifted a membership for it. That's impressive. They still think the hammer is Fisher Price. Well, again, you have to understand, like when you're someone that runs a Michigan podcast, like you can't say, "Oh, the doom and the scud is coming, the doom and gloom, the end of days. Like they have to be the opposite. They say, "Oh, nothing's happened, nothing's happening yet. Look at how good we're doing. We got Wink Martindale, $3 million a year coordinator. Like we're going to be fantastic." So, I don't, I don't know what other position they can take. Like I don't fault like a scum channel, denying and, deflating some of these allegations because I don't know what else they can do. They can't say, "Hey guys, it's been great knowing you, but we're about to suck. We're about to get pulverized into oblivion." Um, I don't know. So I don't know. Like I can't be mad at them because that's if Ohio State was facing the same allegations as the guys, it's going to be okay. Don't rock the boat, but that's how they got to get people to show up because people want to show up and get some hope. And I think Michigan fans at this point are just hoping that the missile doesn't land directly on Schembechler Hall and nuke them into the Stone Age like a lot of people are projecting, like I'm projecting. But Nevada, ZZM says several of us have been trolling a scum channel, got gifted a membership for it. They still think that the hammer is going to be Fisher Price. Your thoughts on it?
Yeah, well, look, just go back and look whatever site it was. Just go back and look at their coverage of this entire scandal, and I guarantee it was laughable. From nothing's going to happen, there won't be any suspensions, there won't be any problems, nobody will be fired. Jim Harbaugh's going to be extended. Jim Harbaugh's flying back to sign. Jim Harbaugh's not going to the NFL. I mean, just there's 50 different instances where they were so completely wrong. And I'm telling you, if I was in the business and I was that completely wrong about a situation, I just stopped giving the information on it. I would because I would feel like I had absolutely no credibility to even talk about it, and that's where those Michigan sites are. So they can talk all they want about stuff. They haven't gotten anything right in regards to this scam. Nothing. And so, when you have that, then you just at that point you just got to shut up and go to the kids' table and let the adults chat. And I think that's best for everybody involved. Is they go back and eat the applesauce and the chicken fingers and other stuff at the kids' table, and let us handle the big boy stuff here.
Have their moms cut their food up for them.
Exactly.
I mean that's where it's at because I was like they were so wrong about everything. And again, they would come at us and Jim Harbaugh's flying back on the plane from Los Angeles to sign an extension, and I'm like, he's not coming back. I mean, when that extension's been on his desk for 6 months, man, and he ain't signed it yet, he ain't coming back, and he hates Ward Manuel. So again, I don't know what you guys have heard, but Ward Manuel publicly humiliated that man, made him take a pay cut. Then Jim Harbaugh turns around and wins a national title, and he was on the first thing smoking in LA because he's like, "Hey, it was fun, but when the White Walkers run up on your building and they're eating you alive, you big fat turd, then guess what? It's a rap skis, and I'll be out in LA, and I won't even hear you screaming when they're tearing you apart limb from limb." D Sunny, thank you for the 5. Any good stories from an unknown kid who just showed up to a camp and dominated? Phew. I mean, that is really hard to do in modern times just because of huddle and, again, like if you were for like Urban Meyer and some unknown kid showed up and dominated, he'd probably fire the position coach because he'd probably be like, "Why are we not on this guy? Who is this guy? Why is he not?" We had a kid, he was Tim Gardner was a kid who I didn't think much of, showed up to camp, had a really nice camp. He was locking down Tyquan Lewis, who plays for the Colts now, signed for $50 million, whatever his new deal was. And he had a really good camp. He was a little short, fat kid. A lot of the coaches that I worked with, like Mike Hallett, who's up at Toledo now, he said he reminded him of Ronnie Tazwell, who went to Florida as a 5-star kid. And he was a kid that little chubby, but he went out at left tackle and he was smooth. Looked good, moved around in camp. He locked up. Nobody could touch Tyquan that day, but Tim was hanging in there, was banging on him a little bit. And then we put all these things on him where he had to lose 30 pounds in like 6 weeks, and he had to do the rest of the stuff, and he did it all. Showed up Friday night lights, had a good camp, got the offer, committed. And then, he, of course, failed a test and was out of the program and went to Indiana and never heard from him again. And that was one where, I didn't really know the kid, hadn't heard it. He ended up being like the lineman of the year in Indiana. But you gotta take shots on a kid like that. Cause again, his performance against Taekwon was what made us go on him, because Taekwon was a kid where, getting him and Joey Bosa was like as good of a set of bookends as you could get in recruiting. Taekwon was it was funny with Joey because, we had to say, oh, Taekwon's a Viper and you're a DN. They're both DNs. Like a Viper was the same thing as a DN, but in recruiting, when you're dealing with the Bosas, it's like, well, we're only taking one DN. It's just you, Joey. But, Taekwon was a DN, but we couldn't take two without, stirring the pot with the Bosas. So we had to lie a little bit, which is common in the deal. But I can't think of many others because again, a lot of times, I can see it now maybe when you've got really young kids, like, you get a 2027 who's just finished his freshman year and he shows up and dominates. Like, that's different. Tyler Atkinson a couple years ago showed up to Ohio State and as a 15-year-old was dominating the 18-year-old seniors. They couldn't block him. So like, I think you kind of hear like murmurs about those kids, but none of the kids are really on the radar until right now during camp season, where a lot of these freshmen and sophomores pop. But yeah, I can't think of a ton because again, with Huddle and with lists from all the major recruiting services, it's really hard to hide a kid. But again, things happen sometimes. Nevada D Sunny asks, any good stories from when an unknown kid just showed up to a camp dominate? And again, I feel like there was a lot more of that back in the day because the scouting wasn't as deep. There weren't as many scouting services. There wasn't online film. There wasn't Instagram and all these social medias where kids can post videos working out and running and because all those are little data points you can use when you're evaluating a kid before he comes to camp. But your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I've been trying to search my memory banks, and it does seem like there are some kids from back in the day, but they're not leaping to mind right now. But why don't we'll stick a pin in this one, and we'll answer this one maybe tomorrow. I'll dig around and think about it because I know there have been some kids, there have been some interesting stories with that, but they're just not leaping to mind right now because, like you said, with the internet, with social media, it's so hard to fly under the radar anymore. It happens, but not as often as I mean, look, I'd say not not exactly a camp situation, but the Chris Olave thing of where they were out there, to watch Jack Tuttle throw, and they just need a kid to catch for him, so they bring him out there, and they're watching Tuttle throw, and they're watching Olave catch, and like, oh wait, who's the guy catching the balls? Oh, that's Chris Olave guy. Oh, well, he's pretty good too. How about him? That's not exactly on point, but that is one of my all-time favorite stories.
Well, yeah, and it's like CJ was like that. I mean, CJ was at whatever, if it was the Elite 11 or whatever, and like G Scott was there. G Scott was like a 4-star, and I think Jackson Smith and Jigba was there as a 5-star, and they were all on the same 7-on-7 team, and CJ was just throwing dots and just dotting these. A dot is like a perfectly precise pass right in the window, right where you need to do it. And, like those guys were calling Ohio State. They're like, you guys got to offer this guy. This guy's the best quarterback here. And, he was a kid that, obviously he had Georgia, but it was kind of before Georgia was Georgia, if that makes sense. It was before Kirby won any titles. And Ryan Day went on what G Scott and I don't know if it was Jackson, but it was like a kid that was like a 5-star. It was like the 2 stud Ohio State kids were on the 7-on-7 team, including G Scott, and they had this quarterback who was obviously under recruited, played at a smaller school, played in California, wasn't a 7-on-7 kid, and Ohio State went on him as the second quarterback, where they already had Miller in the fold, he was offered as a sophomore and kind of did the more traditional route of getting offered as a sophomore, accepting as a sophomore, you're the kid in the class. And, then senior year, they take CJ and CJ turns into the number 2 pick and, Miller never starts a game here. So it's a different world, man. But I think that with the advent of Huddle and YouTube and social media and 3 different recruiting sites and, the big one is 7-on-7, like 7-on-7. Like if you're a skill guy, like you basically have, especially now that Ohio can do it, you basically have to play 7-on-7. So people know who can ball pretty early on. And I think like with these 7-on-7 coaches, they're tied at the hip to big time colleges, and they say, hey, watch out for this 7th grader. Watch out. This 8th grader is playing on our senior team in the national championship this weekend. You need to watch him. He's a freak. Like, I think that kind of vernacular really, it helps guys like Brad Hartline and Ryan Day uncover some of these hidden gems really early and start evaluating them early. Because again, if you're strong on a kid and you can evaluate him and you feel like he's going to be a dude, offer him. Screw it. Why not? Why wait? It's they're usually not contingent, and it kind of is what it is. So, well, Nevada, this is a good long show. Any final thoughts, and we will wrap this thing up.
No, just getting closer to another monster recruiting weekend for Ohio State. As good as last weekend was, this one may be even more star packed, and can't wait. Ohio State's got a lot of momentum, and you can see things breaking at any time. We'll continue to monitor it, and hopefully we'll see you guys all over at BuckeyeScoop.com because we're just having such a good time over there. Like I said, if you like the podcast, complete your Buckeye experience, come over and become a member of BuckeyeScoop.com. You won't regret it, and hopefully we'll see you over there.
Absolutely. We'll wrap this thing up. We appreciate you guys as always. I hope you guys had a great night. Thank you guys for being here. This is a huge show because you guys made it one. So thank you. It's always a pleasure to have you guys here. It's a pleasure to be here. So thank you guys as always. If you guys enjoy this content, please leave us a like, click subscribe. Also click that little alert bell. Shout out where you guys are watching from. Shout out who you guys are watching with. Shout out who are you excited to see in camp over the next few days. The kids today that we broke down. There's some kids coming the next few days. Go on BuckeyeScoop.com. You'll get the whole download of who's visiting for camp. Put it in the comments. I'd love to hear that. Shout out to my Southern Ohio boys. Shout out to my people all across the great state of Ohio. We appreciate you guys so much. Florida, Georgia, Texas, California, North Carolina, South Carolina, New York State. You guys are all over the place. So shout out where you're watching from, because I always love seeing that, and it makes it really cool to see where Buckeye Scoop is growing too. With that being said, thank you so much, Buckeye Nation. Thank you, Scoop family. I will talk to you guys tomorrow. You guys have a great night. Go Bucks.